Hey, it's Mike over at Cross Country Mortgage, and it's time for your Monday morning mortgage update for the week of November the 6th. I hope everybody had a great weekend. I had a fantastic weekend. Boy, fall is in the air. There's no doubt about it. The trees are changing color, and that rainstorm last night was fantastic. My weekend actually started the end of last week. I was at a conference in Phoenix, an industry conference. Everybody talks about what's happening in the market. You learn a bunch of stuff. And the place we were staying at was at the base of Camelback Mountain in Phoenix. And if you've never been to this place, it is a great hike. It's the highest peak in the Phoenix area, 2,600 feet elevation, 1,300 foot climb in about a mile. The climb is not for the weak, but it's absolutely worth the hike up there. Got up there and was able to see the sunrise one morning. Just a fantastic, fantastic view. So let's talk about the market. I always try to give you tools, tips, tactics, things that you can do to go out and talk to your buyers and sellers and have more impactful conversations. Let's talk about what happened last week and what's going to happen this week. So last week was a big, big week. As I talked about, more data and economic data that can move the market that we've seen in a very long time. And so I want to show you this chart because I want to show you the impact on what happened last week. This is a chart that shows the trading of mortgage-backed securities in the bond market. I show you this often. This is a live feed. This is a one-year look, and we can see that these bars, if I move my cursor, you can see the date change at the bottom. And these bars are called candlesticks because they got little wicks on them. They show the movement in the market. The red means money is flowing out of the bond market and rates are going up. The green bar means money is flowing into the bond market and rates are going down. So most of 2023, we held our hat on this market movement on the end of October 2022. That's when the rates had gotten as much higher than they'd been in a very long time. And most of 2023, we've said, hey, rates aren't as bad as they were in October. They're actually we had some improvements and then some worsening. The market goes up and down. And then in July of this year, rates actually got worse in that October date. They improved. And then the end of August and really moving into starting in September, rates just continued to get worse and deteriorate. And obviously, we had a new high in rates. And that high really peaked about the same time, almost to a year. And then last week, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, look at this huge rally. Big, big improvement, money flowing into the bond market, mortgage rates getting lower. Now, when we see this big movement, this is a big shift in the market. We don't see these often. Interestingly enough, though, if you go back to October, we also saw a similar movement. So why did this happen? It happened because the economy is showing signs of weakness, and the Federal Reserve is indicating that they're not going to raise rates anymore. And that was all favorable for bond investors, people that invest in our mortgage-backed securities, 401ks, IRAs, foreign investors, day traders. Everybody puts money in the bond market. And we saw a 180-point improvement. Doesn't mean that the rates improved 1.8%. It means the pricing on those rates improved 180 basis points. But no doubt it was an improvement in rates. So why? Well, the Fed met on Wednesday, and they did not raise their Fed fund rate. Now, keep in mind, they've been raising the Fed fund rate since March of 2022. They've raised it 2 times, and this was the 3rd time that they did not. They raised it every meeting except 2 times, and this is the 3rd time they did not raise rates. And they had a much more dovish tone in their press meeting after the meeting on Wednesday that said, hey, we might not raise rates anymore. We're not saying we're not going to, but the tone was definitely different. Now, they said they're going to keep rates high. This is no news, surprise. They're going to keep the Fed fund rate high, and they're going to let this high Fed rate, which forces the cost of goods and the money that businesses borrow, the cost of that money is high. And basically, they're going to bake our economy into a recession. We've talked about this many times. And there's some strong indications that that we either are in a recession or it's right around the corner. So that was the number one thing. Number 2 is the jobs numbers were much weaker than expected. And that is in a very different data that we've seen. We've talked about how the jobs numbers with the data, the actual reports are showing that there's weaker jobs, but the surveys that the Biden administration is pumping out shows that there's a lot more jobs. Well, the rooster came to roost, if you will, and these job numbers, they just can't lie forever. And now we're starting to see that, yeah, there really are weaker jobs numbers. Manufacturing numbers were really low. Businesses aren't making stuff as much as they've been making. And so overall, we just saw some weaker signs in the economy. And that's positive for mortgage rates because money, when we see a weaker economy, money flows into the bond market because people want their money safe. They don't want to take risk in the volatile stock market. And that's what we saw last week. So what are we looking at this week? We're looking at some things that are going to affect rates. I always try to give you some things, and really Federal Reserve again, and then Treasury, debt, and then I've got a great tip for you. So now that the meeting's over, all the Fed members are talking. They're giving their opinion on what's happening in the economy. The Fed chair says rates are going to stay high, but the market, the bond traders say, we think the Fed's actually going to start lowering rates sometime in 2024 because the numbers just are showing a weaker economy, and there's just no arguing with it. So even though the Fed says they're going to keep rates high, the investors that move the market say, no, we're probably going to see these rates come down, or the Federal Reserve is going to lower rates. Second thing is Treasury dump. So every month, the federal government sells debt. They sell bonds and Treasury notes because they raise money. And when they sell a bond to investors, they have to pay that back. When they sell Treasury notes to investors, they have to pay that back. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago, that there's a massive amount of debt going into the market. So this week, $43 billion in 3-year notes, $40 billion in 10-year notes, and $24 billion in 30-year U.S. Treasury bonds. So there's a competition for this 30-year Treasury bond with the 30-year mortgage-backed securities. If people put their money in mortgage-backed securities, that's good for rates. But if they buy 30-year Treasury bonds backed by the U.S. government instead of mortgage-backed securities, that's not good for rates. So you think about it. If you're going to invest your money and you're going to buy a 30-year U.S. Treasury bond that's backed by the U.S. government, or you're going to buy a 30-year mortgage-backed security that's backed by some guy's house in Detroit, what are you going to buy? We don't know really how this is going to look this week, but there's some indication that money that's being sold that's competing against investors is probably going to lean more towards the U.S. 30-year Treasury. So, tip of the week. As I said, I was at a conference last week, the end of last week. It's an invite-only conference, and the top minds in the industry are there: economists, realtors, lenders that are really moving the market. And there was some very, very commonalities in what people are saying that's coming in 2024 and 25. Number one, it's going to get worse before it gets better. It doesn't mean rates are going to go to 10%. It doesn't mean values are going to come off a cliff. It means business is tough. We all know that. Leads are harder to come by. It's really harder to put a deal together and keep them in because just of affordability. And that's not going to get better. That's going to get worse for the next 90 to 120 days. Don't expect rates to come down anytime soon. They're going to stay up. They're going to stay elevated for the next 9 to 18 months. Some even were saying the next 24 months. So that's something we can't control. Home values are going to stay strong. And then when these rates do come down, they're going to go back up because right now in the seasonality, there's less competition. Rates are high, so people are out of that market. But as soon as we see a shift in that affordability, rates come down, we're going to see people get back into the market. 40% of agents and lenders since the beginning of the year are out of the market. 40% reduction in who we're working with. And an expected 20 to 30% in the next 6 months are going to continue to get out of the market as this market just gets tougher. It's tougher to get a deal together. So I've been through a lot of these challenging markets. I've been doing this 23 years. And what I know is that when markets get tough, people do one of three things. They either freeze, they flight, or they fight. They freeze and hope it'll get better, waiting for something to happen. They get out of the market and do something else, or they fight to keep their market share. And we can't control what's going to happen with rates. We can't control what's going to happen with home values. We can't control what's going to happen with the NAR class action lawsuit decision. We can't control any of that. All we can control is our activity, our efforts, and our attitude. So what you do now, what you do right now is going to have a massive impact on your business in January, February, and March. If you're going to freeze and hope it'll get better, you're going to lose. If you're going to fight for your business and connect with your clients and go out there and make business happen and control the controllables, you're going to have a strong business in January, February, and March. So go out there, don't give up, fight. And if there's anybody that you need help with, your clients, they're challenged, or maybe their loan officer just isn't around anymore, I'm here. I can give you some great tips and tools on how we can structure deals together. So I'll see you next week. Have a great, productive week. Bye-bye.